All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Jen. I know she just shared with everybody, but we'll say it for the video. Jen and I went to school together years ago, way back in 2008. We were getting our master's degree together at Missouri State University at the time. And then my life took a turn to go to South Dakota, kind of in the midst of that. And she and I have remained as best connected as we possibly can with living so far apart. I've lived in a few other states since that time. So, in a nutshell, I'm actually not going to go through all the different awards or credentials that Jen was saying are out there. But my name is Cortney Dueming. Used to be Courtney Costello, so some people still know me by that name. But I'm back to my maiden name of Dueming and have been for several years. In a nutshell, I am a board certified licensed professional counselor and a women's life coach. I'm currently licensed in Missouri, Texas, and Colorado. I'm working on my California licensure right now. I've been practicing for 15 years, and then since 2019, I've owned Counseling on the Fly, which is a private practice that specializes in women's mental health, life transitions, any type of coaching, but I only specialize in women. So that's my background. I also had the privilege of collaborating on the Resilience Anthology. Some of you might have been a part of this one or a part of some of the other anthologies that Jen created for all of us. So I'm grateful to my dear friend Jennifer for inviting me to speak to you today. And we are here to talk about something that hides in plain sight, especially in intelligent, compassionate, high achieving women. And we know it, or we call it in the clinical world, high functioning depression, which isn't quite a diagnostic label at this time, but it might be. We are going to be coming out with the DSM-6 hopefully sometime before 2028, and we are hoping that we will have that breakdown in there, but you will hear all of us clinicians pretty well talk about it because it is real. So it can, like I said, quietly be there in the background, stealing your spark without anyone else around you noticing it. But first, let me define depression with simple distinctions without overloading you with like diagnostic criteria, because there is a reason that we call something high functioning depression as opposed to just depression or any of the classifications that we have underneath that, or even situational depression, which I'm going to hit on that one for a second as well. So clinical depression is really a pervasive sadness, a loss of interest, and often includes a lot of physical symptoms that obviously we classify as we're going through that diagnostic criteria to help somebody figure out what type of pervasive depression they are encountering in their life, and then giving the help they need. Situational depression, also not something that you will find in the DSM-5, but maybe will be a breakdown in the DSM-6, is a response to a life event. So we're talking grief, job loss, divorce, something very specific that we can say, this is why we have depression symptoms happening here. And if we can fix that situational issue, or as time passes and that situational issue becomes not so difficult in a person's life, they can achieve that healing that is very different from a clinical type of depression that we'd be talking about. And then today, what we're going to be hitting on, obviously, is the high functioning depression, which is persistent depressive symptoms, but the person keeps going, very high performing, still smiling, and often very unnoticed by anybody in their world. Okay? So let's just kind of break this down in just little tidbits. And again, I'm not making this very comprehensive. This is just to give you an idea of what we're talking about and how this affects so many high functioning women, maybe even some of you today. So high functioning depression doesn't always look like crying in your car, the shower, or the bathroom at work, though I will say that with high functioning depression, it is often hidden. Somebody could be crying in their shower, crying in their car, crying in the bathroom at work, and then putting themselves right back together and walking back out as if nothing's going on, right? So it often looks like someone showing up to work, smiling for their kids, even though they feel so hurt inside, meeting deadlines, right? Even though most people wouldn't know how they're quite functioning if they really knew what was going on underneath. So it's like a slow dimming of your inner light, holding it all together while something inside you is flickering out. Okay. Here are some common signs. The first one being anhedonia, which I should say is actually present in all types of depression, but it's so highlighted with high functioning depression, and that there's a serious losing of interest in things that you once loved. So you're keeping survival things together, like your home, your work, anything that is super important, your kids, keeping them together, doing everything that you need to be doing. But inside, it's like there's just nothing that you love anymore. There's nothing to highlight that life you live. So feeling numb, like you're sleepwalking through life. Okay. Perfectionism, overachieving, people pleasing, chronic fatigue, even after rest. Okay. Which I'll try to put that in my mind to kind of hit on later, by the way, the chronic fatigue, irritability, guilt, shame, constant inner self criticism, feeling like a burden or like you disappoint others if you slowed down, difficulty feeling truly connected, even with the people that you love. You can be sitting right there, hugging on them, laughing with them, but that deep connection piece is just missing. Okay. And a persistent sense that you've lost your spark. It's important to remember that depression looks different in everyone. So even as I list off these, important symptoms that we often see with high functioning depression or situational depression, in some people, it's going to look really loud, as I call it. Okay. Where people are kind of noticing that you're maybe on fire or burning the candle at both ends or burnt out, but that's how they see it. They just see it as, gosh, she's just got it all. She's doing it all. She's just burning out. She's just burning the candle at both ends. Like they don't know that it's high functioning depression. Okay. They just think that you're just doing it all and maybe need to take a break, maybe need to have a vacation, maybe need to take a PTO day. And really, there's a lot more that needs to be happening there. Okay. And then in others, it's very hidden in the silence and performance, and they want it that way. Okay. They don't want people to know that their spark has gone out inside. They don't want people to know that they're struggling inside. They don't want people to know that, yeah, it would help to have help. It would help to have the kids stay with somebody over several weekends so that they can actually get some time to themselves. They don't want to admit to themselves that they probably need some space from some other people so that they can get on their feet and really kind of address the things that are going on. Okay. They don't want to admit that they really should go on vacation or take a break from that job or talk to people who they can really trust. They can keep that information confidential. Okay. All right. So I do want to address what's going on in the brain. Yes, depression is real. It's not just in your head, okay? And it even can be seen on brain scans. So I do get a little bit on my high horse, a little bit, or on a platform, you could say, when I hear people still say depression isn't real, anxiety isn't real, it's all in your head, blah, blah, blah. No, we can see this. We can put your brain, okay, under neuroimagery, and we can see the distinct differences in what is going on in somebody's brain, whether it is some type of clinical depression, high functioning depression, situational depression, you name it, anxiety, we can see it. So if somebody ever tells you that, just know they're ignorant. They don't know the science behind it. And, unfortunately, that's probably going to exist in our society a little longer until every generation can get that out of their mindset. Okay. Because a lot of people have been taught that way. All right. But depression is more than brain chemistry or circuitry. It's a soul whisper. It's a deep, chronic exhaustion. A signal that something within you needs tending, not hiding. Okay. Why this matters and when to speak up. Being high functioning doesn't mean you're okay.
It's about high function depression.
Okay. Many women dismiss their symptoms with thoughts like, this is just what adulting feels like. I should be able to handle this. Other people have it worse. I can't let anyone down, especially when we're mothers, right? Okay. But pushing through is not the same thing as healing. If left unaddressed, high functioning depression can lead to emotional burnout, isolation, withdrawal, physical health issues, a sudden emotional crash or crisis. Okay. Therapy is especially helpful when you feel emotionally exhausted all the time. You've lost your joy or sense of purpose, even though you're doing so many things and can try to tell yourself you have purpose. You're really not. You're just feeling like you're coping more than you're living. You feel like you're surviving, not thriving. You're not yourself anymore, but you're not sure who that self is. Okay. So, how therapy helps. A skilled therapist helps you untangle the emotional knots that you've learned to live with. Therapy creates space to express your truth without judgment. And I would add on there confidentiality, right? Because sometimes it's not safe to tell people what's really going on in their world because they will exploit it or they will hurt you in some way. So I don't suggest that you just tell everybody what's going on, take off that mask. Like, you need to be very picky and choosy with who those people are. Okay. But a therapist, a good therapist, will help you learn emotional regulation and healthier boundaries with yourself and others to kind of help rein in what's going on in your world. Okay. They'll help you practice self compassion and challenge perfectionism. Okay. Because a lot of times when we see somebody who is in high functioning depression, they're taking care of everybody else around them, job, kids, family, whatever, but they're not taking care of themselves. So essentially abandoning themselves, right? A good therapist will help a person reclaim their own self, help take that back. And then how to heal trauma, not to relive it, but to release it. Reclaim the joy and peace that you've been living without for quite some time. And then most importantly, and I want you guys to remember this, a good therapist also uses a biopsychosocial lens, which means they look at your entire context of life, your biology, your life story, your environment, your stress levels, your relationships, your beliefs, not just your symptoms. And this leads to a more accurate insight and support of what you really need. Okay. And that's kind of the danger of even having me talk about this today, is that I'm going to give you a lot of information, but I don't want you self-diagnosing yourself. Okay. If you really feel like you're experiencing some of these symptoms, it's wise to go to a skilled therapist. I'm not talking about myself. I mean, sure, I could be there, but anybody who is a skilled therapist with a very experienced background, I definitely recommend somebody who specializes in whatever your needs are so that they can do a true biopsychosocial analysis and truly, pinpoint what's really going on there for you today, not just hear some symptoms and think, oh my gosh, that's me. Okay. All right. So, supporting loved ones who may be struggling with high functioning depression, I want to hit on today too, because some of these things you may be saying, none of this sounds like me, but it definitely sounds like somebody I know in my world. And oftentimes, the people who seem the strongest are the ones silently suffering. So be open. Don't assume. Seek to understand. Okay. Now, when you're seeking to understand what somebody is going through and they actually open up to you, I want you to be very strong and not getting defensive or taking what they have to say personally. Okay. Because that's another thing we do as women. When somebody says some really deep, dark things that they're going through, we immediately kind of, well, how did I have something to do with this? How have I hurt this person? How have I, X, Y, and Z? It's like, no, you're just there to listen, be open, be supportive, okay, without making it about you accidentally, because we tend to be pretty empathetic. All right. So, ways to support someone with high functioning or situational depression. Don't assume they're okay because they look okay. All right. Offer presence, not pressure. And I'll give you some examples. You could try saying something like, I've noticed you do so much for everyone. I'm here if you need support in tackling something together. If you need me to take the kids to get alone time, or if you need quality time with another person. All right. Another option could be, I know we always do things this way. So maybe you're talking to a partner or a work colleague or something like that. So it could be work routines, home routines, that kind of thing. Would it feel good to change things up? What parts do you enjoy doing and what parts do you not enjoy doing? All right. Now, I want to be really specific about what I'm saying here. A lot of times we have in our American language just this quick, hey, if you ever need anything, let me know. Let me tell you, somebody with high functioning depression is not going to be like, oh, let me take you up on that offer. Could you take this off my plate? No. Okay. They're going to be like, okay, thanks. And then they're going to move on with life because they're not accustomed to giving people a list of things that they need to be doing. They're not accustomed to asking for help. They're not accustomed to saying, hey, I really do need you to take the kids every weekend for a month. They're never going to say those things. If they could say those things, then we're not talking about high functioning depression here. So I want you to be very specific with your language. What can I help you tackle this weekend? What can I take off your plate? When can I take the kids? Okay. So you're entering in their world and you're kind of doing it for them, right? Now, if at that point they're like, oh, no, 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 I mean, sure, we're not going to like bust through somebody's boundaries, right? But oftentimes when we hear somebody really stepping into our world to really take something off our plate, we're like, okay, actually, that'd be really helpful. Thanks. Actually, yeah, I'd really like to stop doing this specific thing. If you could take it from me for a while, that'd be great. Okay. You could share your own story if it is relevant. Vulnerability absolutely can invite connection, as long as it just makes sense. Okay, so follow your intuition on that one. Definitely normalize therapy. Talk about it the way that you would talk about going to any doctor or professional clinician. Okay. I'm happy to see that right now we're in a pretty good spot for that, but we need to keep breaking down those barriers because I still hear those, inklings of what I was sharing before of like, depression's not real, anxiety's not real. Oh, you don't need a therapist, you need a best friend, or you just need to talk to your mom. And sure, you can talk to all those people, but if you're struggling to take care of yourself on an emotional level, okay, if you're not giving yourself self-love and self-care, I definitely recommend going to a skilled therapist for some help. All right. Avoid minimizing statements like, just be grateful. Or if somebody does tell you something, but your life looks great. Okay, that's not helpful. Or you'll get through it. Or you don't seem depressed. Right? Okay. Instead, leave them with truth. Getting help doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're brave enough to choose self-care and self-love. And you don't have to tell anybody about it, but I definitely recommend if there is somebody in your world that can keep things confidential, is deeply supportive and loving, they're probably an okay person to open up to. And it's okay to tell them, please don't tell anybody. I want to keep this between us. All right. Okay. If any of this resonated with you, here are some next steps. I want you to reflect. What am I pretending is fine, but really isn't? Out of self-love and self-care, what can I do for myself right now? Okay. I also want you to reintroduce joy on small levels. Okay. When somebody has high functioning depression, it's not like they can just jump into all their hobbies and loves. In fact, it might be something brand new. Okay. One small joy or moment of pleasure that you've been missing, I would challenge you to reclaim it this week. Okay. And then I want you to use resources. We already talked about talking to a therapist or asking your tribe for support, those that are trustable and, can keep things confidential. That's key. Ask for help in dividing and conquering so you don't burn out. I know I just told you how to talk to other people if you're trying to help them take something off their plate, but I'm going to encourage you to ask people to help you in different areas that need divided and conquered so that you don't burn out, because you will eventually. I want you to speak up for yourself and set new boundaries, not just with yourself, but with other people. Okay. If you don't know how to do those things, that's again where a good therapist comes in. I want you to read a book that speaks to your experience. And I am going to give you a list of books that I think are helpful resources to the topic we're talking about. And of course, let someone you trust know how you're truly doing. All right. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys to do a little guided reflection with me for a moment. If you can close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath, really deep breath. And ask yourself, what part of me have I been hiding? What joy have I stopped reaching for? What would it feel like to stop pretending and start healing? What mask am I ready to set down, even just a little? You don't have to figure everything out today. You only need to remember that you are not broken. You are not alone. You don't have to stay in hiding. And there still is light in you. It's waiting. Let's honor it. Let's protect it. And let's help you let it shine again. Okay. All right. You can go ahead and open your eyes. I'm going to list off a few, actually several books that I think are great for deeper healing, but I will give you access to my notes, or Jen has them as well. If you don't want to fastly write all of these down, but these are excellent companions for your journey or someone else's. One of the people that Jen liked about this topic, high functioning, is Dr. Judith Joseph. She was the one that met with Mel Jen on this topic. And she actually is coming out with a brand new book on the 8th of this month. You can actually pre-order it from Amazon if you're interested, but it's called High Functioning by Dr. Judith Joseph. And it is going to be an excellent companion to what we're talking about today. She's one of the leading researchers on this particular topic. And I really hope that the collaborators that are a part of the DSM-6 include her research in our next diagnostic criteria, because what she's finding is very important. Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb. That one's been out a long time, so some of you may have read that book. Permission to Feel by Dr. Mark Brackett. The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. He's also been out a long time, but he's a leading expert in trauma and how we trap, all types of trauma in our body, but especially emotional trauma. And his work helps people to get that out of their bodies. Radical Acceptance by Dr. Tara Brach. I did add the Deconstructing Grit collection, okay? And most notably, I want to talk about resilience, which some of you may have this book already, might have been a collaborator with this book. Jen asked me to be a collaborator with this book, back when she was putting this together. And on pages 98 to 102 is my particular chapter, which is called Never Stuck. And interestingly, is actually about my own snippet story of going through high functioning depression with situational depression, which, they overlap sometimes. Okay. So in my particular situation, I was going through a specific situation that was putting me through a depressive state, not clinical depression, but situational depression. And then on top of that, I was still very high functioning, with my job, with my family, with everything that was kind of blowing up at the time, literally. And, it's just a nutshell. But in that particular chapter, what I do is I give step by step, numbered steps of what I did to help myself pull out resiliently out of situational and high functioning depression at that moment in time. So if you're interested, or if you know somebody and you're like, yeah, they really need step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, that's the chapter to read. Okay. I will tell you that doesn't mean that my steps are necessarily what's going to be the golden nugget to somebody else's experience, but it definitely was what I used step by step to break free of what I was experiencing back in 2017. So additionally, I have What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. Wintering by Catherine May. The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this book. I love this book. Every year I give my clients some sort of gift for Valentine's Day. Back when Resilience was released, they got that gift. But this year what I did is I did a monthly book club for all of my clients, and we just got done reading the 4 Agreements together, and it just broke doors wide open for them. And I've been really excited to see all the things that they're doing in your life. And I think every woman in particular should read that book, no matter what stage of life they're in. The Gifts of Imperfection by Dr. Brene Brown. Self-Compassion by Dr. Kristen Neff. How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LaPera. Rest in Resistance by Tricia Hersey. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, which I don't know if you're familiar with that book. It's also a fictional book that is right on target with helping people move forward and to really kind of grasp what's going on in their world with sadnesses, that are happening, but still moving forward resiliently. And then lastly, I put The Empath by Brandon Goleman. Okay, so in closing, I want to thank you all for spending time with us this morning. I lovingly support everything that Jennifer does from afar as best I can. I wish I could support even better. If something stirred you today, please don't ignore it. Listen to your intuition, or if somebody was kind of prompted in your mind of like, oh, made me think of this person, don't ignore that. Reach out, okay? Speak truth. If this was you, reclaim your light. Now, this is not where the story ends. Okay. And you definitely don't have to carry this alone. I would encourage you not to with the right trusted people. Okay. All right. So my contact information is available to you if you want to connect, ask questions, or explore therapy. Or if you feel free to follow at Counseling on the Fly on Instagram. I post a lot of content on there all the time about things that women should know. If you want to leave your email address in the comments, I'd be happy to send you a copy of my notes today, along with a free digital copy of Resilience, if you want to get a hold of my chapter on this very topic, so that you can get your hands, on just learning a bit more, maybe pass it on to somebody else. With the digital copy, I think you can pass it on. I'm not real positive on that. And then in addition, if we have time for questions, I'd be happy to answer some. I think I flew through this pretty quickly, Jen, which is good. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask me anything you want.
Yeah, we have plenty of time. So I have this blocked until 11. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute and ask Cortney anything you might have on your mind.
You're welcome.
Yeah, lots of great feedback in the chat. Everybody's going to do
Jen, do you want to ask me the questions? If there are any
Sure.
questions in the chat, would you be able to ask
Joni
me?
said she would love a book of the book list. I'll make sure to send that out. Great presentation. Everybody's putting their emails in the chat. So far, I don't see any questions, but does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Nikki's got a question. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, like if I'm starting to feel overwhelmed or whatever, if I don't exercise, I kind of get into a funk. I don't know how exercise, meditation, tapping, and your internal language kind of all play into that. And I'm sure some of these books help address some of that, but would love your just initial feedback on that.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. So, even though I touched on the brain chemistry as part of what's kind of going on here, I didn't really go into detail. Essentially, when any of us are in any type of depressive state, it could be any number one of the names, okay, or even an anxiety state, our body stops. And I want to kind of back up in the way I say this. Our body is a wonderful, magical space, and it knows when we need certain things. The issue is sometimes what it knows we need is also something that can be counterproductive. Okay. So anytime we are in a depressive or anxiety type state, our body stops releasing some very important hormones like serotonin, endorphins, norepinephrine, oxytocin, any of what we would call like feel good type hormones that any of us love feeling, right? And that is, by the way, why different types of medication are absolutely helpful that are, for instance, SSRIs, which are serotonin reuptake inhibitors, right? They help our body to be like, hey, no, like, I know you don't want to produce this right now or release it, but you need to go ahead and do that. And it just tells your body to go ahead and be releasing those hormones, right? So what you're hitting on when you say, hey, tapping works for me, exercise works for me, honestly, I would add on to their sex, orgasm specifically, okay? Anything where it allows our body to go ahead and release those types of hormones, even though we are in a depressive state or an an anxiety state is why that is working for you, Nikki. And so I'm really glad that you brought that up. There's lots of things, you know, those aren't the only ones. Yoga is a fantastic one, which I know, you know, some religious areas of the world will try to prevent you from doing yoga, but it's still one of the number one things that research continually over and over again says, do it. Your body will release it. Every time your joints are moving and exercise and yoga, we are releasing those hormones. Okay. So, and you know, the body keeps the score, hits on a lot of that type of research as well. And we know that those things are highly effective. So, I would absolutely encourage that. Of course, meditation is one you'll always hear, but what I would say with that one is that when somebody is in a truly depressed state, or anxiety for that matter, it is very difficult to get into a meditational state when your body is there. Okay. I find meditation is easier, not that it's better, easier for people when they are not going through depressive or anxiety symptoms because they're already up in their head. It's much more difficult to meditate when you're already up in your head. Okay. Thank you, Nikki. Did you have anything to add to that? Okay.
We have a question in the chat from Diane, the Diana. What part of upbringing and background experience play?
Big, because, you know, that's what we call complex trauma, by the way. Okay. Is that when there are multiple things that are going on within us throughout our life, it's not like we actually forget about those things. Even if we think we have forgotten it because we put it in a little box in our brain and kind of shoved it to the side to where we're not thinking about it on a day in, day out basis, it still complicates our entire body, which again, The Body Keeps the Score is an excellent book that covers how exactly that trauma is stored in our body. And by the way, why yoga can be so incredible to that process, because we actually are able to release that trauma through yoga. I also want to mention that crying is supremely important. And I know that for women, we're pretty good at crying. You know, it's pretty socially acceptable that we can cry. But you know, no one should ever hold back those tears, because when those hormones are building up inside of us, it's really the quickest, fastest way that our body can release those hormones immediately, you know. But we need to make sure that little boys, teenage boys, adult men are all crying as well, because again, it's one of the quickest, fastest ways to get those hormones back out of the body. We don't need to be storing that up. It's highly detrimental.
Thank you. And it looks like Marianne had a question in regards to if you could pick one thing that she could start doing right now, what would be your recommendation?
Oh, I like that one.
I know that's kind of hard. I'll explain. So I just feel like, and a lot of people probably see this all the time. I'm everywhere. I'm like at a lot of events. Everything looks okay. But like inside, I'm just like kind of down lately. Just like with all my kids, like my son has all this, you know, eye tracking and reading. He's behind in school. So I'm meeting with the school. Then my daughter's having other problems, you know, like there's just a whole gamut. My mother-in-law's in the hospital. My husband was in the hospital last week with blood clots. Like everything is just spiraling, and I haven't been taking care of myself. So I can just feel like I even took off yesterday and today just to kind of like regroup, but I just feel completely down and like out of it. And I don't know what to do. Like, I probably need to exercise. Like that would probably help, but I just want to sleep. You know what I mean? Like, what is one thing if I was going to exercise or see a therapist or take more medicine, or, you know, what is like one step in the right direction?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, for my opinion, I don't really think that it should be exercise just yet. Okay. Though exercise can absolutely give you serotonin releases and is absolutely beneficial to the body for so many things, you have to remember that when your body is in a depleted state, we don't exactly want to keep depleting you. All right.
Yeah.
Because that's hard. So essentially you're working your body when the inside of you is already working. Like it's trying to help you because it knows that this depressed state is not good. And that's something that we kind of forget as women, even when we're on our menstrual cycle, right? Like we'll keep pushing, but the inside of us is constantly working on all these different things that it's trying to keep up with. And our society, in my opinion, is very hard on women. I think we should have the entire week off when we're on our cycle because our body is already working so hard, right? So I wouldn't recommend exercise as your first thing. If your body is telling you specifically right now that what you want is sleep, then that's exactly what I would recommend you do. You sleep, okay? Now, sometimes when you're in a depressed or anxious state, we can't sleep, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't lay down, close your eyes, deep breathe as much as you possibly can. Another thing that you can do for yourself is really try hard to only be breathing through your nose. Don't breathe through your mouth, okay?
Okay.
So be taking really deep breaths through your nose, especially while you're sleeping. Okay. I'm not going to get into all the ins and outs of the science behind that today, but I promise you, if you look into it, there's a lot of science behind that. Okay.
Okay.
Breathe through your nose. Keep your eyes
Okay.
shut. Remind yourself that even if you are in a relaxed state, that's just as close to sleeping as you can get. That's better than running your body really hard. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So listen to your body, give yourself sleep and rest. Also, I don't want you hurrying the process of this depressed state at all. Okay. Your body needs to go through this. You're going through something real, probably lots of things. I'll say for women, usually it's a snowball of issues. It's not just one thing. So even a situational depression, I don't even mean one thing. It's usually a whole bunch of things that make this big old snowball, right? So go through that slowly, but be very gracious to yourself. In fact, I want you telling yourself that. I'm going to be gracious with myself today. I'm going to give myself 2 days off of work, and I'm going to just lay there, and I'm just going to relax, and I'm going to breathe really deeply, and I'm going to keep my mouth shut while I'm doing it. And I'm just going to just be.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. The lesson in that, ladies, too, is that she herself felt like what she wants to do is sleep. Okay. So just check in with your own intuition. What do I really want to be doing right now? Like, if I could, what would I choose? Okay. So you may have something else that comes to your mind that isn't sleep related. Start with that, but don't hurry the process. Okay. Okay.
Then there were just some other comments that said it's hard to focus when your nervous system isn't regulated. And then I know crying helps me, but I hate allowing myself to do it. And then
okay, so there's a core belief there real quick. Let's just
Okay.
talk about that real fast.
Sure.
So whenever somebody has and we all do, by the way, okay? In fact, I would challenge this, write this down. Okay, we all have core beliefs. And when I say beliefs, I'm not talking religious, although that could play into it. I mean all types of beliefs, right? So you saying out loud, I have a hard time crying, I hate to do it. What's the core belief there? Why do you hate crying? Okay. And then I would challenge you to change that core belief today. And it really can be that quick, ladies. We make things very hard. Life does not actually have to be as hard as we make it at all. Right. And I mean, I know that I'm just saying that off the cuff, and we're not actually in a therapy session where I could actually walk you through that belief and changing it and making it not so hard on yourself. But you could change that today. Okay. So whoever had that comment, because I'm not really looking at the comments, I'm looking at your lovely faces. Just kind of go a little deeper with yourself on that one. Where'd that core belief come from? Do you really want to keep that belief? Do you want to change that belief? It's up to you. What else are you seeing there, Jen?
Hi, I have a question. Good. Sorry. Good
Noah
morning.
was in resilience too.
Good morning, beautiful ladies. I have a question. I do event planning, so I'm always on the go. So I'm wondering, my eating habit does that, do I need to watch that a little bit more? And how does your eating affect depression? Or how does eating eliminate depression? Yeah.
Good questions. I would say watching is not that useful to people. I would say having just an open, good conversation, just letting someone know that truly life can be hard sometimes, and that you want to be able to be a person that they can talk to where they feel safe and where they feel like you'll be able to keep things confidential. Okay. Sometimes moms, we can get in the way, not me, because I'm very particular about this, but we all have had relatives where they hear something and then they tell everybody else in the family what's going on with that person. Please don't do that. You know, if you're going to have a private conversation with somebody, it needs to be between you and that person alone. Okay. And maybe tell them that if they're used to you being someone that kind of tells the family what's going on. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Sometimes it's good news. Like, hey, so-and-so graduated and they got honors and they got this, that, and the other. Sometimes it's good news, but just tell them, hey, this is just between you and me. I'm not going to tell anybody else about this. Okay. So keep that dialogue open, offer to help in some way. If you do feel like they're stretching themselves really thin, burning the candle at both ends, be present. Okay. Your second question about eating, absolutely important. Okay. In so many ways. And honestly, that could also be one that goes back to Nikki's question a while ago of like, or whoever's question it was about what could I start doing today? I think it was Mary Ann's. And food is absolutely part of it. What they don't tell you, but you know, as you know, I'm a therapist that helps women through eating disorders as well. Anything a woman goes through, so eating disorders are absolutely present. Is that a lot of comfort foods also release those good kind hormones we were talking about a little while ago. Okay, and so when you find yourself reaching in the cupboard for any type of comfort food, you know, breads, pastas, that kind of stuff, chocolate, you know, it releases good hormones. And so it's no wonder then why we reach for those things when we feel depressed, we feel sad. Okay. So on one hand, sure, you could use those things to kind of help give yourself a quick boost. On the other hand, what your body really needs, because remember, your body inside is working extremely hard when we are depressed, anxious, any type of issue going on in there, give it the nutrients it needs. Do not neglect your vitamins at all. Okay. A big one we see in America is vitamin D. We have to have vitamin D for every single type of cell functioning in our body. And if we are low on that, which typically American women are, that is very dangerous. Keep up on your vitamins with your doctor, keep up on fruits and vegetables, like basically be giving your body the tools that it needs to be fixing everything internally so that you are your best internally. Okay. So there you go. It's kind of a catch-22, usually is, isn't it?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then let's see here. Joni made a comment about how her yoga teacher says that your life is extreme boot camp. You don't need to take an extreme boot camp class. Amy commented about crying is clearing for me and sleep is therapy. And then Mary Ann, thank you. But does anybody have any other questions for Cortney?
The question about if crying is hard, not only changing a core belief, but what else could help somebody cry and release if they're used to not being able to do that?
Yeah. In my experiences, therapy is very helpful with it. You know, I don't know how many times I have clients that are extremely inexperienced with crying and they get into a therapy session with me and the tears are flowing and they're always like, I don't know why I'm crying. I never cry. And they're like stopping themselves. And I'm like, let it out. You know, we need those tears to be flowing. I don't care if you're blubbering while we're talking, you got to get it out. Right. So therapy is deeply healing for that because we're talking about very intimate things in a very vulnerable but safe, confidential space that allows people to do that. For some reason, therapy is a little better because think about it. When you're talking about this with somebody in your, I'll call it real world, okay, you're still trying to hold your tears back. You're still trying not to show it. You're still trying to like stuff it down. But in therapy, there's none of that because typically your therapist is not in your real world. Okay. So you can be as vulnerable as you want to be and it just happens. I mean, I'm telling you, ladies, I've probably seen every single one of my clients cry, but if I could tell you how many clients cried in the first session, something about therapy. I totally recommend.
Can I also share? I just remembered during the time of COVID, of course, my business was shut down because, you know, party rentals, events, you know, we're not allowed to, you know, go about our daily business. And I could tell that it was affecting me because I felt like this is what I worked for. And, you know, I'm not sure what's going to happen to the world. Everyone's passing and dying left, right, and center. And what I think the way I fought it was to just wake up in the morning, take a shower, dress up, put my makeup on, style my hair, and just feel good about myself. And I noticed when I did that, I just kind of got my strength back. And I started thinking, okay, what can you do with your time now? You have some downtime. Maybe you need to work on your website. Maybe you need to, look through your phone and clear up some old emails or something.
Right.
So just waking up, just putting myself in a place where I feel like, I can get, I can see myself again, and, I can do something with the time I have now. So there's an advantage to my downtime back then. And I used it well, but it wasn't easy because for a while I was really kind of sad and I could feel myself dripping into depression. So that's how I felt it.
Right. So what is that you're talking about though? It's self-care.
Right. Yes. Yes.
So anytime we are in some type of depressive, and I'm going to bring anxiety back into this, even though I don't mean to, but it does apply. Anytime we're in any type of depressive or anxiety state, what is happening is we are not engaging in self-care anymore. Okay. We're not engaging in self-love anymore. We are not taking care of ourselves as priority. In fact, we're usually the last priority, where kids, family, work, everything else is elevated, and we are not. So that's the key there as to what you were experiencing, is that you were indulging in making yourself feel beautiful, take care of little tasks that made you feel better. Okay. So ladies, that's what I want you to hear out of our story, is self-care and self-love is extremely important. Okay. So whatever that looks like to you, that's why I was saying, with Marianne, if your body is telling you need sleep, sleep. Okay. But what is your body telling you? What do you need? What would be that piece of self-care, that piece of self-love that you need to start integrating into your life today, if possible?
I just wanted to offer a comment. I put a book in the chat. Krista Neff has a newer book called Fierce Self-Compassion, and talking about the importance of not only tender self-compassion, but also standing up for ourselves and self-advocacy.
Yep.
And one of the things she talks about is that in our society, women are not allowed to get angry. And what happens is we turn it in on ourselves and push things down, and that's what is kind of like we're depressing what we're feeling and trying to ignore it, instead of anger is usually about, it's not about taking it out on someone, but taking some kind of action to repair a situation that's not working in our best behalf, to be kind of like self-advocating. And when we ignore it or say I can't and drive it down into depression, then we're abandoning ourselves. So I highly recommend the book, and really understanding some of the societal messages that are at play, that it's okay for us to be fierce advocates for our kids and our families and everybody else, but not for ourselves. And that's baloney.
Right. Absolutely. And what Dr. Krista Neff is kind of speaking to that as well, is one type of emotion, right? And usually that's situational depression. So I just want to make sure you guys know anger, yes, is one of them, but sometimes it's not anger. Sometimes it's betrayal. Sometimes it is deep grief of a loss of somebody that doesn't necessarily mean death. Okay. Or the loss of something that was very important to you, that could mean so many different things, right? So it's not always going to look like anger, but anger is definitely one of them. And I do have Dr. Krista Neff on here on one of the books. And I love what Joni is suggesting here, because frankly, the authors that you see in my list, which I say that you don't have the list just yet, but you will. The ones that I labeled off, the authors in general, all of them have many books, and I would recommend any of their books that they have. Yeah. So thank you for mentioning that, Joni, because yes, she does have some other great work. Anybody else? Anybody else on a topic that's not necessarily depression? If that would be helpful or useful to you today from a mental health perspective.
Thank you so much, Courtney. This was incredible. And I love that you were able to spend this time with us and share your wisdom and all of your knowledge. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So if nobody has any other questions, we can wrap this up a little earlier today. But incredible content. This was Mary Ann's idea, and I'm really happy that you were able to be here today so we can deliver this bonus workshop. So I will have it recorded. So those of you that dropped in late, I'll make sure to send out a link. So thank you so much, Cortney. And thank you everybody for coming today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. And hey, Jen, what would be the easiest, best way to get these folks that left an email address?
Yeah, I'll send you everybody's email. So then you can send out the content. That would be wonderful because it looks like everybody wants your book list.
Okay, perfect. And then do all of you also want the resilience copy as well? Which is
It
just
appears so, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for being so generous. That's amazing. So
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
All right. Thanks for attending today's, ladies. Have a beautiful day.
Bye.
Bye.